Hey folks, Steve here with another video in our fantastic series covering Fleurus 1794. We're doing the Day of Battle, and we are now heading into turn 5, which is the equivalent of 10 a.m. So still the morning, a morning of the battle. There have been a number of clashes, and at varying points, the French have been close to even cracking the Austrian lines or finding a way to divide and conquer and put the Austrians out of position. Unfortunately, the die rolls haven't gone that way. What may be the biggest threat to the French position right now are the Dutch up here. We've not seen any alternate reinforcements come in yet. I have been doing those die rolls off camera, and they've just not been coming up. It's pretty low possibility for it to come up, which is fine. I would definitely say the Austrians would feel the help of getting the British and Hanoverian units onto the board, but it even still feels like they have a numbers advantage on the French, is what it feels like, just in terms of like what's on the map and the positioning. We really have like the two halves of the first column, half one and half two, uh, against just the left wing of the French position, and they're kind of in a tough spot, to be quite honest. Um, but meanwhile, the reserve formation contesting the second column, the center contesting the third column, and then the advance guard kind of holding for the fourth column because they haven't been able to stay in command very much, and the right wing opposing the fifth column. So, you can kind of, there's almost a mapping of a formation to a formation, excepting where the Dutch kind of have a two against one uh, situation, and the struggle continues. Now, one fun thing is I do have the observation balloon up. It's just that it doesn't really do a whole lot for us because I'm not playing with hidden units because this is solitaire, and there's just not much of a reason to do that ultimately. And I've covered kind of how I think of that already in previous videos. Just that, even if you could reveal a stack, it's there, you see your opponent move it, or you kind of understand where things are moving. Like, you can kind of keep track of where units are where, and there's no point in trying to trick myself. So we're going to continue to play through. Currently, the French have two eliminated, very small, weak cavalry units off the map, just a strength point each, so not a major loss. The capability of just having cavalry, that loss sucks, but the French haven't lost a lot yet, and they'll be working to do what they can to find a way to um, knock the Austrians off balance somewhere. We just haven't seen it fully come to pass yet. They're really playing for time and hopefully opportunities for significant counterattacks. So we're going to go right for the Austrian turn. They are player one, so they have the first half. I'm probably going to aim to do turns 5 and 6 in this video at least. And what I think I'm going to do to expedite that is I'm going to shift gears to showing the aftermath of the whole player turn. That should mean less commentary and less me rolling dice on camera. If there's a significant situation that we haven't seen yet, a particular mechanic or something that feels really important to talk about, we'll maybe cut in to show that before we roll the die or explain the situation. But I think after a couple of videos now, they're all close to an hour long or over an hour long, you guys have seen enough of things to kind of get how the game works, and I shouldn't need to do too much more adjudication from here. So we'll let that go, and we'll see you guys back on here, or we'll have the camera back up here after the Austrians and the Dutch have gotten a go again, and hopefully made some more inroads against the French hoping for obviously the opposite. Okay, we're showing the aftermath of the Austrian turn. I would say this has been a really, really good turn for Austria. They've been making really good die rolls, and I'm finding even one-to-one combats are worthwhile because you are getting those retreats. You're starting to shape the battle line, and then you can do more of what you want over time. Here, we had trapped a unit. We had done a combat here, forced a retreat, and then the combat here had them retreat into a Zoc, and basically we now have a unit or a set of units in the waiting recovery box. So that was for the left wing, which was bad enough. You can kind of see General advancing, really kind of waiting to make a breakthrough here and then be able to swing down and take the victory point unless these guys can get over there, which they probably will. But still in a pretty good position. We don't need to overextend ourselves as the Dutch. We're making steady progress. Over here, we had a cavalry swing around, get in behind the reserve stack, and then Kwasanovich came over concentric attack and forced a retreat, which took step losses off of the stack, and they're in the reduced units box, waiting recovery. And then that was enough strength points lost, a total of 10 from the reserve being those 2 units, both an infantry and an artillery, and then the previous cavalry unit. That's more than enough because the demoralization level for the reserve formation was a 9. So we exceeded that, and so now that formation is considered demoralized, and we've now got this big gap in the French line where we're going to probably be able to put some hurt on. So it was touch and go here with the second column, but it looks like the second column's coming out ahead, unfortunately for the French. We did see a retreat over here, and then to make sure that we don't find ourselves in too exposed a position, they did not retreat after combat. So that's more, or not, they did not advance after combat. So that was more just causing disruption of the French line, keeping them off balance. Finally, over here, we had a formation that was not in supply, but one of their cavalry, which was outside the command range, did get in command, just repositioned to support the 5th column. The 5th column has moved in and has managed to force some retreats. Nothing super significant, but basically leaving them in a decent position. So anytime we get like retreats without a major change up, the only way that those retreats will matter is if a faction, or I'm sorry, a formation can't get into command, and then you can exploit that. So over here, I guess on the right wing, I should say, there is the potential to maybe really force our way through the right wing. The right wing has a chance to reconstitute itself. We do need to figure out how we're going to resolve this gap as the French, so we're being put into a very reactive mode. And it may just mean, looking at the map, we've got enough guys that are not engaged that we may call for a pullback as much as we can in a better defensive lines. So we'll certainly seek to do that, I think. So we'll switch it over to the French, and we'll let them go. We'll see what happens in their way to respond. I do think a contraction of our lines with the reserve, center, and advanced guard right wing, generally pulling those guys back is probably the best choice right now to maintaining the situation as best they can, looking for those opportunities to counterattack. Okay, here we are after the French turn. So we're getting ready to head into the 11 a.m. turn. But the French have scrambled. They got really lucky. They had to have a combat here. They did not want to have. They managed to get lucky on the die roll and were able to retreat. So they're at least keeping alive. We've crossed some units, including the leader, off into the other side of the river to hold the victory point hex and the river line, and defending here. We couldn't quite get into the hex, so we'll see if the Belgians try to make the crossing. These guys, being out of command and could not move on their own, are kind of stranded, which, I mean, it's kind of weird terrain here, so that buys the French some time to make something else happen, maybe even cause some other trouble for the Dutch at some point if they can knock the French out, because The French managed to take that chateau, did eliminate the reduced second column unit, and has now put the Austrian second column in a demoralization from a combat that managed to eliminate the Austrian cavalry there. So there is still a sizable little force here, infantry and artillery, and then Coburg that's been with the heavy cavalry, but that's kind of it. So they are demoralized. They're kind of in some trouble. Here we tried to push against the third column and were rebuffed. So kind of holding the line. And then on the far out edge, we forced the fifth column back. And so rather than fall back, I decided to try to make a push. And it is feasible that we're going to be able to make something happen here. This guy might not even activate because he's going to be potentially out of command on the next turn, because we're sort of they're kind of out of command range. So we can maybe make something happen here, guys. I don't know, but do I take too much risk on as the French, knowing that the Dutch are pressuring our left flank like crazy? We don't want to get caught out too badly here, so it's really touch and go. I'm not sure, how far each side can push what they're trying to achieve here. It's going to be very, very near run thing, I think, in the center. I managed to get just a ton of shock results for some reason this combat phase with the French. And each time it was just that's what you happened to roll on the die was the SK shock result. And so highly attritional over here with the Chateau combat, because any die roll result of a retreat is going to force shock. And maybe I need to just be trying to get into more chateaus as the French, maybe, because they just had more steps. They could outlast that force. And now they can start to, if we talk about like next turn, go like 1, 2, 3, and be projecting a Zoc over here. Suddenly, these guys look like they're in rough shape. Alternatively, we use the opportunity to have knock the second column back, or even to maybe surround them in a couple of turns, to pull back and try to hold the Dutch back. Those are all options. So we'll see. So ultimately, that was turn 5. We're going to go into turn 6, which is 11 a.m. here next, with the Austrians going. All right, just to show quickly the end of the Austrian part of turn 6, we have actually eliminated some of these units here that got caught by the Austrian cavalry and eliminated because we were rolling on a 6-1 column, and they got a DE. Now they are on the units awaiting recovery, but the left wing is just a couple strength points from demoralizing. The French have a really high morale, I guess, for this left wing, but they are really now starting to fall apart. Things are just holding. This cavalry is not willing to cross the river. The second column is actually falling back because we don't want to be surrounded and eliminated, which is going to give some breathing space to this unit, but only just so. And Coburg is trying to hold in a position where he can fall back, but it's not a great position. And very soon, I think we're going to see the third column get surrounded, which could be extremely problematic generally for the Austrians. They did force a retreat here, pushing the center back, but again, not necessarily going to be super helpful in the big scheme of things. Command will be an issue potentially. And then over here, we did force the French back here, and then we ended up having shock with a 1 step loss reduction each here. So we're seeing some bloodiness start to come in. The 5th Corps has the potential maybe to, or 5th column, I should say, has the potential to really hurt these guys in the big scheme of things. So we'll have to see how that's going to run. very generally, my thoughts so far, just to make a comment, are that boy, it's touch and go in various places, and I really need to be thinking on the larger scale operationally because the Dutch really have a good position, and we similarly have a good position as the French, but we're going to need to make some decision about like where are we going to defend, what are we going to do, can we pull back the reserve over here and still as the center roll up on the third and fourth columns. That would be ideal if we could do that and basically cause uh, the Austrians to not be able to operate. If we can get behind the rivers and hold the rivers and kind of hold in various places, it simply may be the best option for us. So um, yeah, we'll see. We're going to do the French side of the sixth turn now. Okay, so you can see where the French are at right now. Um, these are French units, by the way, trying to fall back a little bit. Unfortunately, these guys did not succeed in activating the demoralized reserve, so they're kind of in some trouble here. And I either need to put Jourdan at risk or something, and I don't want to do that. So these guys really just need to hold for the moment until we can send help back their way, I guess. We certainly have some options to maybe chase after their baggage train if we can get their reserves going, but they're kind of in their own, they've got their own problems. The reserves, these guys were able to be put into command because um, they had been in the command range of Jourdan before he moved. And so they all came over here. We did eliminate that last heavy cavalry of the second column. So the second column is really down to just that stack there without cavalry support. And these guys are starting to be able to come through here and, really even next turn, unless the Austrians can figure something out, they're in deep trouble. Basically, they're going to get surrounded. So this is going to require the Austrians to kind of back off or to create some new situation, maybe to distract the French. But they're in trouble. Um, so we've managed to knock them back. Coburg could have been eliminated, but he succeeded on the die roll and is now with the third column force here. And then the advance guard and the right wing have fallen back, actually. So we're kind of creating this like, hey, we're gonna fall back, we're gonna come around you this way, all the while just on a hair trigger falling apart on the left wing, just barely holding at the river crossings and holding on for dear life around Charleroi. So yeah, we're going to go into the next turn, which is the noon turn, which is going to provide the possibility of recovery. We're going to look at supply, which there could be some supply issues at play because of the destroyed bridge here being a very big problem for the for the um, for the French. So these guys will be out of supply. Being out of supply, isn't nearly as bad as you might think. Because this is just a day. Like, okay, you're being out of supply just means that you don't have a safe route back to your baggage train, or it's very far away, which is functionally feeling like demoralization. But that's not too. We can kind of deal with that with this left wing for a little while until we can pull more guys back. But at some point, we're going to have to do what damage we can to the Austrians, either go for it to knock them out, or desperately try to rush guys to the left wing as the French. Very tough. So we're going in the noon turn for the Austrians, and we'll show the aftermath of that. We'll just keep going. I think we can keep going. I'm keeping these cuts pretty short. Okay, showing the aftermath of the coalition move again here for noon. They did actually recover one of their units in the second column, and it is up there. Ultimately, that doesn't really fix their total demoralization problem, but yeah, certainly does not. So Still, it's good for them to have another unit way back there. Maybe can start doing something. But you can see now the Dutch have come through. They eliminated a left wing cavalry, which is forcing these guys into demoralization. And to top it all off, Frederick has pushed over the bridge and won a shock combat to take one of the victory point hexes here. Now the French have an opportunity to try to kick that back and kick them out, but it could be a very near run thing. If they're successful in getting the ability to push these guys back out around, then or push them back over the bridge, that could be catastrophically bad for the Dutch. So there's still hope. Over here, really nothing too crazy. It's really more positioning now, with the third column having to retreat back. And it's funny, like the French can afford to give up one of the victory point places down below to the lower left if they can get up into here and take these victory point hexes. But there's no guarantee that any of that's even going to happen. So it is really tough. I can't even tell you who's really winning, just due to how tough this continues to be for both sides. I'm kind of wondering if the Austrians are actually still winning, because they can get the second column back in action and we from there. So hard to say. The French are going to have an opportunity to get some units back onto the board via reorganization. So we can certainly try to do that, but it could still be a challenge. So we'll see. So we'll go to the French side of the noon turn and go from there. Okay, with the French part of the turnover, things are not looking good. Attempt to take the victory point town failed with a retreat. We did pull back our reserve force to try to hold the flank here and are generally retreating the center. So while we had a good opportunity to maybe start rolling up the Austrian line, it's just getting too bad over here. We need to pull these guys back. We need to pull everybody down at this point. Try to get back into the city, though these guys are going to start to move in and out, so they're going to pretty much have blocked that up. And we're going to be trying to figure something out over here. I think things are starting to look more and more like an Austrian victory as we go, but we'll see as we head into the 1 p.m. turn for the Austrians. All right, as we shift over to the French side, here's the aftermath of the Austrian player turn for 1 p.m. Not as good as they were hoping. They're still able to kind of control this area of operations, but some attempts to work their way east have kind of failed, so the French are holding for the moment. They are approaching to surround and eliminate these reserve units here. And basically elsewhere we are seeing kind of stagnancy here. It's kind of hard to see where they can make good ground, and so they're just slowly getting into a different formation, but we'll see where the French can get in return. They're probably going to continue to pull back, continue to pull back basically wherever they can, and maybe get back to here and then kind of defend like that, but we'll see. Okay, guys, I've actually played ahead a little bit, so we are technically at the start of what would be the 3 p.m. turn. And you can kind of see we actually made some good gains with some pushes, some lucky die rolls and pushes on the Austrians, such that we're actually pushing back out around the Dutch. So we're just fighting tooth and nail here. I don't know at what point you say general retreat or something, but we're going to fight tooth and nail to it. So we're seeing some shock combats here, some cavalry skirmishing. We just eliminated a weak Dutch infantry unit, which is going to lend some hurt. And it's probably going to cause some of these Dutch to try to pull out of there and get knocked back, they may end up being in danger of having their supply cut off and encirclement over here. And then even over here, we've managed to kind of repulse back, and by repulse I mean push back, not repulse. In game terms, the Austrians, stuff being pushed back. So it's kind of a weird tangle here. It's like both sides are becoming a bit exhausted at just, what can we achieve? The step losses are starting to rack up from the shocks, and things are starting to get more difficult just over time. We'll see what else happens here, but we're going to do 3 p.m., which is a recovery turn. We'll see. We'll see where we get. All right, here we are as we head into the 4 p.m. turn. The whole left flank of the French is pretty well compromised, all excepting for these guys. Now we were able to get some reorged units in, and that's helping the reserves come out of demoralization, which is going to give them the opportunity actually to kind of try to sweep left or do something to resolve this situation. We did just eliminate some third column units. Well, they're in the units awaiting recovery, but we did demoralize the third column, and we actually removed a unit from the fourth column as well, because of a failed attack on their part that caused them to retreat. We were able to get in around them, force a unit off map. The only trouble is our right wing is in deep, deep trouble. And I could see that going very poorly. We could even see 1, 2, 3, 4, a deep penetration here with their cavalry. So kind of a challenge, but the battle is continuing. The battle is waning, and we'll see who comes out on top. I think this is still going to be an Austrian victory, but we'll see. Okay, hey y'all, this is the midpoint of the 7 p.m. turn, so technically we have another turn and a half left to go, but I'm just going to call it because there's really not much more hope for the French position. I probably should have called for some sort of general retreat at some point, but just didn't happen. There's a segment of the first column snaking around the edge of the map, basically making sure that supply is cut to the French army is functionally what's going to be happening with the way that they're going. They're going to come up through here, probably take Charleroi unless we try to zip somebody down there, which the French could do, but it's basically like everybody is just being encircled at this point. The fifth column is kind of snaking out around, so these guys are going to just be surrounded with no hope of survival. This reserve corps is kind of, it's got some units back from reorganization, but they're just kind of out of gas. So I think we're going to call, just to show the dead pile, kind of shows the significant difference here. So even if we were looking at victory points and say like the French held everything, which they're not going to, because the Austrians are at least going to hold this. They may not be in supply, which would be the problem, but we're getting closer and closer to the likelihood that just on holding victory positions alone, the coalition would be winning. And then just when you do the differential for strength points lost, I think it's going to be like, oh, I don't know. Let's just look at what the situation is right now, knowing that we could have some. So even if you looked at everything off board, 5, 10, 15, really only that much? Gosh, 19. And then over here, it's like much more than that. 20, 25, 20, 29, 30, 31. If you were to count these guys at full strength, 38, 39, 31, 35. So that would end up being 4 victory points in favor of Yeah, I think it just works out to be this is going to be a coalition victory. I don't think there's any other way to do it. We're probably going to be cutting off the wagons, bagging the wagons, eliminating more units. We got a captured leader also that was removed. Yeah, I think I can call it. I don't know what the final calculation would end up being, but I think it's very safe to call this an Austrian victory. Um, which is not the historical result. I don't know, how exactly that all would have worked out if this was going to go down the more historical path. Things are kind of scattered, by the way, so if you're looking closely at the map, things are just in disarray at this point as we're finishing up. So yeah, Austrian victory. Yeah. Hmm. All right. I think what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to get this video up, which is going to be the rest of the battle uh, for Fleurus 1794. And what I'm going to want to do, I think, is do a post-mortem. I don't think I'm going to do a review. I think it's hard to do a review at this stage of my experience with the system. And I certainly want to play more battles from the games in the series before I start doing reviews. I did have a fun time with this. I think just trying to figure out what are the right moves is difficult to determine, especially in this particular battle. So there's a lot of learning to be done here. I think I got a good first shot at it, and definitely some lessons learned. We'll leave it at that. So yeah, we'll call this one, guys, Austrian and Dutch victory over the French, a historical result. Um, wasn't worth playing the last couple of turns because I think it is well and good settled at this point. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found this interesting. I'm sorry, it got to the point where I was just playing through. I didn't want to take the time to explain every turn, so I just played through multiple turns without checking in. Just because I wanted to see what was going to happen, and to try to explain it was just beyond my willingness. I just wanted to see where I could go with it. The game actually plays really, really fast if you're just playing solitaire and you're just trying to make stuff happen. Um, but you do get into weird positions where like, okay, how do I advance from here? What am I doing? What's the chateau going to be like if they're going to defend in a chateau? I think those are all key elements. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Sorry if this video is going to be a little bit weird, but we'll do a post-mortem in the next one and move on from here. Thanks for watching. Take care. Keep gaming.